He's the face you've seen on 14 News for 50 years, but he's been gone for more than 5.5 months, and we're so glad to see him back here, welcoming back our very own Mike Blake. Mike, you have been gone for a couple of months. People are wanting to know a couple of questions, and first off, where have you been?
I have been here in town, but I've also spent some time in Indianapolis and also over in eastern Kentucky, at Richmond, where one of my sons is a basketball coach. My wife Jenny and I both went into ICU. As many know, we had the battle with COVID.
Yeah.
I was in for 5 days in ICU. My beloved wife Jenny, unfortunately, never got out. She was in ICU for the better part of almost 50 days. And because of that, I'm very fortunate. I have a family. I've got quite a support group. As you know, I've got 4 kids, and they have been wonderful. My daughter lives up in Indianapolis, and my 3 sons. One is in Evansville, one is up in Indianapolis, and another is over at Richmond, Kentucky as a basketball coach. They have been spectacular, and we've had quite a support group.
So you've been spending a lot of time healing and learning a new normal, it sounds like.
Yes, and I'm very grateful not only to my immediate family, but to the family here at 14. Folks, I always consider myself blessed. I had a wonderful parents, wonderful siblings, and I've got a wonderful family here at 14, and I'm very grateful for their understanding, my boss and a great television, to say, hey, take your time and come back when you can. And I've been very happy, Jackie, that I'm very fortunate and very glad that I didn't have to come back right away or sooner than I did. But I'm ready and really looking forward to it.
We're really glad to see you back here.
Good to see
we're
you.
We're gonna talk about this too, because we're gonna come back to the COVID journey a little bit later. But right now, everybody is also excited to see that you're going to be back on the television airwaves. Tell us a little bit about your return.
It's going to be on Monday, which is February 1st. It'll be a new midday. Instead of an hour, it's going to be a half hour. We're excited about that, and I'm very fortunate that the show has been able to continue.
Now, coming back and saying I'm back, that's quite the declaration. Was it hard to get there, or did you always know that you wanted to make it back to some sense of normalcy for you?
I felt I always wanted to come back, but I said this in my eulogy to Jenny. Back in February of '73, folks, I didn't know it at the time, but on February 17th of that year, I won the lottery. When I married her and then had 47 wonderful years. We were blessed with 4 kids, 10 grandkids. And I always valued my faith, and I want to say at this time too, I cannot thank you enough, and my family was overwhelmed by the tremendous outpouring by people here and from people that used to be here in Evansville or here at Channel 14. And it's very comforting, and I thank you for your support, for the prayers, and I think it shows you how lucky you are despite a great loss.
This journey that you've been on, can you take us back to when it first began and what happened? You have this unique position, being a leader in the tri-state, and a lot of people know you, and so I think they'd be interested to know how your journey went.
Well, back in August of last year, my wife and I both contracted COVID. We actually went in about with a day apart of each other. And as I've mentioned, I was in for 11 days, and I thought, boy, this is nothing to fool around with. And I had no idea that Jenny would be in almost 50 days. She ended up on a ventilator and ultimately had a tracheotomy, and it looked like she had turned the corner, but that was not to be. But despite that and the horrific, I can't say enough of the people at St. Vincent, Ascension St. Vincent ICU, the doctors and the healthcare workers. What they are putting up with is unbelievable. I mean, I was like most men, I guess, I wasn't the best patient. I mean, I was impatient. I wanted to get out of there. Jenny had a much serious case, more serious, and she had some health issues before. She had rheumatoid arthritis. She was taking some powerful medicine for that, and as a result, that maybe, although it helped her, kept her battling that, it also hurt when they tried to regulate her her medicines with regard to COVID. But again, we were so fortunate, and I say this, we were, had she died, in, say, in a car wreck, I don't know what I'd have done, and the family, at least we had a chance to say goodbye. And for those of you who have suffered similar losses, that's a blessing. And my wife, although she couldn't talk to us, she had a lot of tubing, she could, with her eyes, and she could also could let us know, hey, I hear you. One story, I could bring my children, 4 adults, in one at a time during the last month or so of her life. And my son Billy, he's the 3rd oldest, he said, Mom, we taught Dad how to use a debit card. And my wife's eyes were like this, and then she flashed them open, like, get that card away from him. He doesn't know what he's doing. But we had pictures in her ICU room. It is so important, and remember this now, if you've got loved ones who are suffering, boy, communicate with them, talk to them whenever you can. We FaceTimed Jenny in the early days, but it meant the world, and she had pictures all over the room so that there was that connection.
Yeah, so quickly. And if I remember too, both of you got all of the different therapies that are available. They tried lots of different things.
They did, and even at the time of her death, I want to do a shout out to the docs in the ICU, in particular Dr. Roger Johnson, a wonderful guy who was with her and 4 other compatriots of his. They were working on Jenny. It was on a Saturday night from about 7 to 7:45 before she passed. And you know, in this technological age, 3 of my kids were on FaceTime. They could see her. And one of my daughters-in-law and the 2 other kids were in with us, and again, we could say goodbye. But it's something, you know, it's something that you think, oh, it's not going to happen to me, and it's a pain in the neck, I know, to wear a mask, and here it is, 8 or 9 months, and psychologically, we're all maybe a little more irritable, maybe we're not as empathetic as we should be. Hang in there and wear the mask, keep the distance. And we will get through this. And thank God we've got some vaccines that are now being distributed.
Yeah, and speaking of keep the distance too, we wanted to make sure too we were far enough apart. Even though you've been through it, we know that there's a chance that you can have COVID again. And so, and as this thing goes on, the pandemic, we're learning more and more. Going back to you though, and your experience with Jenny, you have just been through one of the worst experiences anybody could go through. And in coming out this backside of it, looking back, do you have any realizations or sort of life aha moments that have come to you throughout this whole experience?
I have, you know, I think of a lot of things, but I think what I've learned is the pandemic has taught us how to reconnect. The world stopped in many ways. And I was crazy about my wife, and we've spent, you know, I have no regrets, but it also forced me, and I got a crystal clear look of the suffering that she went through. It was just ungodly, and that's not the hospital's fault. It was just that this was really wicked stuff, and this was in the early times. There weren't that many cases in Vanderbilt County, but God love her. She, and this was after we could send her messages and so forth. But it got just unbearable for us, and but nothing compared to what she was going through. And I think if I could pass along just a piece of advice, you know, if you've got someone that maybe, you know, maybe you're miffed at, or somebody you haven't seen in a while, but you really like them or love him or her, reconnect, get in touch. Don't put it off. Life is far too short, and my heart goes out to those in nursing homes, in hospitals where people can't come in. They have to go to the windows and wave. If you can call them on the phone, whatever you can do, reconnect with those individuals, and I think they'll be much better off, and so will all of us in our new mental health.
That's really good advice. You know, before the pandemic too, a lot of people, or maybe when it first happened, a lot of people had sort of shifting points of view about the pandemic. And now from this point, has your point of view changed at all? And if so, how?
I think in the beginning, because there was some conflicting, back in the early part of the year, in the early summer, you didn't have to wear a mask. Well, it's better to wear a mask, and all these reports. But I think if nobody wants you to suffer, but I think we'd be very smart. Even I, who have had COVID, I can't be walking around without a mask, and I'm very conscious of when I'm with other people. And I just think for the love of all of your family and the love of your friends, do it, and I think we'll all be better off. But I've learned, again, God works in strange ways, and I think one of the things I'm very, very grateful for, when we got married, my wife Jenny inherited, she was an instant aunt to 19 nieces and nephews.
Oh, wow.
And they loved Aunt Jenny, and many of them attended the funeral 47 years later. And you forget, and I'm from a large family, the youngest of 5, the outpouring, the power of prayer. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to pray. We all need prayers. Our country needs prayers. And whatever your faith is, say, God, help me get through this, and I think He will. And again, my daughter, my sons, they're the best. Mm-hmm. And I think too, I can say this. This is true for everyone. I don't know what we'd do without our faith or without our loved ones and the support group. The station was phenomenal. I got videos, and I heard from people that I worked with almost 40 years ago, and I've been here 51. So that was very humbling and very just wonderful to have that outpouring and that support.
So you're typically the one asking the question, so it might feel kind of strange to be here on the other side of the table with me, but you're doing a great job. And I do appreciate the chance to sort of switch seats with you and be able to ask you these very personal questions and have you answer in a very personal way. Also to share your story, to be a little vulnerable. That's kind of difficult sometimes, but to be vulnerable so that we, on the flip side, all of us who are listening, can glean something from what you've been through.
I think another thing that I've learned, I've had, but many of you have had a similar, just a devastating loss. I always said, honey, I've got to go first. I can't live without you. Well, here I am, but the way you get through it is, again, I think I have to realize that my kids and their father, we need each other more than ever before. And my grandchildren, who was the apple of my wife's eye, and she loved them all dearly. She is still with us. I think of her, I pray to her, I talk to her, and I have no doubt she'll be with us the rest of our lives. But for those whom we've lost, stay close to those who are still left behind. And if you can, that is how we will all get through this. We all need a support group. And Jackie, I'm not kidding you, being on the air, I'm a guy that wants to reconnect with you. I've been blessed. I can't tell you how lucky I've been in my 47 years. And if I'd have lost Jenny in her 31st birthday, a lot of this, it would have, I don't know what I'd have done.
Well, I was going to say, we're so glad to have you back. You are a legend in the tri-state.
That just means I've been around a long time.
No, you're like a family to us, and I know that you can't wait to get real people to interview back in this seat instead of your 14 News family.
And even on Zoom,
And even on Zoom, that's right. But it's really, really great to have you back. And once again, people can see you on the brand new time slot, 12:30 to 1.
12:30 to 1.
Starting on Monday.
And not threatening, but maybe, God willing, later in the year, our boss, Jay Height, who's been wonderful, keeping it, and I'm amazed at how all the departments, it's a ghost town here. We don't have as many wonderful people in-house. A lot of them are working at home. We will be live sometime in 2021, right? Back in the studio, and that'll be even better. But for now, please keep watching and let us know who you want me to talk to, and and again with Allie and Cassie at the helm, I think we're gonna survive quite nicely.
Mike, Good to see you. Welcome back.
Great. Thank you very much, Jackie.